Have you ever felt that your body clock was just off? Well, you're in the right place because today I'm going to teach you 5 strategies for how you can reset your body clock and get better sleep. Before we get started, I just want to say thank you to David and the Plantie team. It's wonderful to be able to speak with you guys today and teach you some valuable information that I think will go a very long way to creating lifestyle change that will help you move forward in whatever it is you feel your purpose here on earth is. So let's get started. I'm Dr. Karthik Ramanan. As you know, a little bit about me real quick. Listen, most high-achieving professionals and entrepreneurs suffer in constant stress, and I teach you how to end burnout so that you can get your life back. I'm a licensed naturopathic physician. I specialize in integrative emotional health and lifestyle medicine. And a little bit about my education: got my doctorate of naturopathic medicine from Southwest College of Naturopathic Medicine in Tempe, Arizona. I have 2 bachelor's degrees from Cornell University in biological sciences, applied economics, and management. After that, I worked on Wall Street actually for 8 years at Goldman Sachs, and I had a life transformation. I had a plant-based diet life transformation that sent me down a different path to become a naturopathic doctor. And I came to medical school in Arizona and met a beautiful woman, and she's now my wife. So I married my medical school sweetheart. All right, let's get started here. So today we're going to be talking about resetting your body clock. First, I'm going to talk about 2 hormones that affect your sleep that you should know about. And then these are the 5 strategies. So fix your light exposure, fix your food habits, morning routine, nighttime routine, and fixing your psychology around sleep. And there you have it, folks. We're good to go. No, I'm kidding. We're going to get started now. All right, melatonin and cortisol. So these are 2 hormones. You can think of melatonin. You've heard of it. It's a supplement, right? But your body produces it, and it is basically your stay asleep hormones. The levels are orchestrated by the hypothalamus. The hypothalamus is this gland inside your brain that is really your master regulatory gland. Think of it almost like a thermostat. It has various functions in the body like a thermostat, and one of which is to regulate melatonin levels. So one thing to know about melatonin is that it is secreted in the darkness. So it's only when you are exposed to dark that melatonin levels rise. Light actually turns off the melatonin production. The other hormone that we're talking about is cortisol. Cortisol is the opposite. So if melatonin is your stay asleep hormone, cortisol is your alertness and also a stress hormone. And this is also orchestrated by the hypothalamus in the form of the HPA axis. If you've ever heard of adrenal fatigue, it's really a dysfunction in the HPA axis. And what we have here are basically the curve of melatonin and cortisol during the day. So what basically here, let's get this laser pointer going. All right, fancy. All right, so here, this chart from this study starts at 11 a.m. and goes to 8 a.m. the following morning. So when you look at melatonin, it's going to be low in the morning. And then as we approach the evening hours here, so this is 8 p.m. onward, it starts to rise and it stays risen through the night. And then in the morning, as you wake up, the levels drop, and then you restart the cycle the following day. There's actually a 3-hour gap between 8 a.m. here and 11 a.m. on this side, so that's why these 2 don't exactly join. But on the flip side, we have cortisol. You notice how these 2 curves are almost opposite, right? Cortisol is your alertness hormone, right? So it would make sense. If this is your stay asleep, you'd want your alertness hormone to be the opposite. Now, this is a little confusing to read when it starts at 11 a.m. and ends at the following 8 a.m. So here is another chart that just tracks the cortisol from 3 a.m. to the following 3 a.m. And as you see here, you have the highest cortisol about 30 minutes after you wake up. And then as the day goes on, it drops and drops and drops. And this is a healthy cortisol curve. This is what you want. This is a good circadian rhythm for both of these hormones. And again, it makes sense, right? You would want high cortisol in the morning high alertness, high energy, high, it's really a stress hormone too, which does get secreted when you have an acute stress, but also chronic. And that reduces as the day goes on. Melatonin is low during the day and rises at night, and that gives you a good circadian. There's a lot more to it, but this is just as an example to show you some of the basic physiology that goes behind it. Why it's so important to keep these hormones in proper balance and homeostasis. So, tip number 1: fixing your light exposure. This includes sunlight throughout the day, reducing the use of your devices in the evening, and also darkening your bedroom. So let me explain. There's a protein called melanopsin. Now, melanopsin is a light-sensitive protein, and it is found in the eye and even in your skin. Really interesting. So the eye will detect light, and this protein will detect light in your eye, but it's also in your skin. And it's responsible really for synchronizing the whole body clock. It gives us alertness. And the interesting thing about melanopsin is that it is triggered only by blue light. So blue light from the sun, naturally speaking, is what's going to give us, again, that alertness and synchronization of the body clock. It does not get triggered by orange light. So if you think about it, it would make sense if we are out in nature that we should get more alertness as the sun is up and less so as the sun goes down. So melanopsin is in charge of that. But what is our modern life more like? We're indoors most of the day, so we're not getting enough proper blue light from the sun, right? Adequate blue light on the skin, not just in the eyes through our screens, right? And then it comes nighttime, and what are we doing? We're looking at our phones at night, watching videos, whatever the case may be, and we're getting that blue light in our face, and it's confusing our body clock to say, wait, what time of day is it? Blue light means daytime, but it's not synchronized. So repeated exposure like this can very much confuse all the signaling pathways that ultimately tell the hypothalamus how to synchronize the body clock. So it's important to reduce the exposure at night to these devices. And if you are going to use a device at night, use the blue light blocking feature. So our cell phones these days have, like on an iPhone, there's night shift. So that blocks the blue light, or at least shifts the color temperature more toward that warmer orange type of tint. And the other thing you can do is get blue light blocking glasses. And if you get ones that can cover the periphery, that will work better. But again, our skin has sensitivity to light exposure as well. So it's not perfect, but at least it can help. So that's another tip. But as well, we want to darken the bedroom. And why is this important? Well, again, melatonin is secreted in the darkness. And we want to make sure that the photoreceptors that are in our skin are also exposed to that darkness. So if you are on a busy street, or there's street lights outside, whatever the case may be, you want to get blackout curtains so that you can completely block out all the light that comes in from the outside. Now, that might make it a little bit challenging to wake up with the sun in the morning. But one thing that you can do is get a wake up light alarm clock. So this is basically an alarm clock that lights up in the morning, and some of them simulate a sunrise. They can work quite well. But also, don't bring your phone into the bedroom. And I will harp on this big time. Do not bring your phone into the bedroom. Yes, it might be your alarm clock, but it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be, because think about what happens in the middle of the night. You have to go to the bathroom. You come back and let me just check my phone. And before you know it, you're on Instagram for 10 minutes and you've screwed up your your body clock for that following day, right? So you don't want to even give yourself that possibility. Leave your phone in another room and don't see it until you have completed your morning routine. So let's get to that coming up here in a little bit. But the next one is fixing your food habits. Your chronobiology is actually affected by your food pattern. So that is your time biology. Food used to be scarce. Okay. We have all these intricate systems in our bodies for conserving energy and nutritional resources. And feeding throughout the day, we've been told, 3 meals a day, all that. It's fairly unnatural. So if we're in a constant fed state, we fail to establish the daily rhythms that our metabolism and our gut microbiome have really come to expect over our evolution. So one way to help with this is what's called time-restricted feeding. Now, you may have heard of intermittent fasting. It's kind of the same concept, except that with intermittent fasting, there's the implication that you're eating less. But time-restricted feeding just means you eat the same food, just in a smaller window of time. So you can start with a 12-hour window and start to restrict that down. Now, the other thing is also eating food toward the beginning of the day. Research has shown to have beneficial effects for the circadian clock, as well as even for weight loss. Because if you think about it, our cortisol, right, was high in the morning, right, after we woke up, and then lowered throughout the day. If we were out in nature, wouldn't it make sense that when we have high alertness, high cortisol, that would be a good time to go gather food and eat? It would make sense, right? And as the day goes on, you wind down. Digestion takes out about 30% of the body's energy usage. And would it make sense to be spending that much energy and creating that much thermal heat, body heat, when you're trying to go to sleep in the end of the night, when you need a cool environment in your bedroom to fall asleep? It really doesn't make as much sense. So if you shift your eating toward the beginning of the day and less so toward the end of the day, that can have beneficial effects as well. And the last one is really reconsider coffee. Consider eliminating coffee, because stimulants can really disrupt your sleep pattern even hours later. And the need for a stimulant like coffee in the morning is an indication that you might not have as strong of a cortisol response in the morning as you might want. And maybe the caffeine is just covering that up. Let's move on. Morning routine. A good night's sleep starts the morning before. So the first thing you want to do when you get up, remember, we've put the phone in another room. We're not waking up with our phone. When you wake up, you're in a clear headspace. Nobody has gotten into your head at all to that point, right? So you want to keep that as long as you possibly can so that you can set your intention and plan and visualize your day ahead. So you can start your day with meditation, with prayer, with journaling, anything that gets you centered and focused on your goals and your mission for the day before you look at your phone. The other thing is, in the morning, if you're going to get sunlight, you want to focus on getting sunlight exposure. Getting it in the morning is the most valuable because, again, that's when we're telling our body we are alert, the sun is up, we are up, cortisol is up, right? Getting that sunlight exposure for 20, 30 minutes in the morning is excellent, along with exercise. So an excellent way to do this would be getting a morning walk or a morning jog outdoors. Again, to go with the nutrition side, a morning meal would be a good way to focus, as well as considering eliminating coffee. The other thing I wanted to mention about fixing your food, listen, we're here, whole food, plant-based diet, obviously a good way to go across the board for various reasons, but here as well. So a morning meal that is maybe fiber-rich, like an oatmeal, again, whole cut, would be a good thing to consider, as along with fruits, things along those lines. Now let's keep going. All right, so nighttime routines and habits. How do you wind down? You want to read fiction from a printed book, journaling, having a conversation with a loved one, light yoga, contrast shower. These are just ways to, again, mentally slow yourself down and allow yourself to just proceed with getting your mind into a state of just unwinding. Because if we're thinking about work, we're thinking about things that are stressing us, again, the cortisol levels are going to rise. We want that to be down at the end of the day. We want melatonin to start to rise, right? So for us to do that, we have to get ourselves into a routine every night where we are doing something that calms us and relaxes us. And our habits, our daily habits, have an intricate role in keeping that circadian rhythm going. So we don't want to be in a situation where we're just at the mercy of how life happens to us. We want to be in a mindset that I do certain things each day to trigger the habits in my body to create the habits that require sleep. And one other thing is with your bedroom, use it for sleep and sex only. No TV, no work. That way you mentally create a space, psychologically create a space that when you enter this bedroom, you automatically relax and start to get sleepy. And our final tip here, I know we're going super fast, fix your psychology around sleep. Now, what are your beliefs around sleep? Sleep is for the weak. I'll sleep when I'm dead. I got too much work. I'm on team no sleep. I get it. I've been there. I'm not going to tell you the story of all of it. But if you feel that sleep is in opposition to your productivity, you will unconsciously sabotage yourself from getting good sleep. So just getting into the mindset and the psychology around, you know what? Sleep is an integral part of my health. It's an integral part of my emotional health, and it's going to allow me to perform at the highest level in whatever endeavor that you are here to do in this world. And fixing your psychology, your mindset around sleep will go a very long way to resetting that rhythm along with the habits that I talked about earlier. So there you have it. Those are your 5 tips for resetting your body clock and getting better sleep at night. But here is a bonus tip. See a licensed naturopathic physician, because here's the thing. There might be something else, right? Melatonin, for instance, can be used by the body as an antioxidant. If let's say you're not consuming enough whole plant foods and you don't have enough antioxidants in your body, there might be some other needs going on in your body. Melatonin's being used up there. Well, that means there's less melatonin available to help you stay asleep. So if it's really important to work with a licensed naturopathic physician or integrative doctor who can really run the tests and look at everything that's happening in your body to truly understand what type of supplementation or what type of lifestyle change can really help you get to that next level. So that is an important part that I want to emphasize, because everything that I've talked about right now to this point, listen, I'm a doctor, but I'm not your doctor, and none of this is individualized medical advice. These are just education for your information only. So see a physician who can help you out, and it will pay off big time. Lastly, if you want to connect with me, my website is drknmd.com or drkarthikramanan.com. That's just a shorthand. You can find me on YouTube. I have a ton of free, actionable information there, along with guided meditations, motivational speeches on my YouTube channel there. If you want to join our Emotional Health Warriors private Facebook group, that's the link. And if you want some daily knowledge and inspiration, I go live every week, 5 days a week, every weekday, on another private Facebook group, the Insiders Club, where I do guided meditations, motivational speeches. I teach about topics like this. It's very interactive and incredible community. So if you want to learn more about that, join insidersclub.com. Thank you very much. I hope you've enjoyed this presentation, and please do reach out to me. I'm on the other social platforms as well. If you just search my name, Instagram, etc. And I'd love to connect with you. I'd love to know what's going on in your world and how I can help you get to the place that you want to be, because you deserve to get your life back. I believe in your greatness. I'm excited to get into your questions, so let's dive right in. The first question is, I have always slept soundly, but currently, since the COVID lockdown, I wake up in the middle of the night for 30 minutes to an hour, then go back to sleep, but then feel super groggy in the morning and then tired all day. Is there anything I can do to try to not wake up at that time or fix this? Very good question. I have 2 suggestions. In addition to obviously everything else that we talked about during the presentation, because again, it's those fundamentals, those lifestyle factors that make the biggest difference. But also consider this: visualizing as you go to bed, visualizing that I'm going to fall asleep and stay asleep the whole night. However, visualize what happens when you do wake up. Visualize falling back asleep soundly. Visualize waking up the following morning with energy. When we can plan something in advance in our minds, we can find ways to make that happen. But if we just allow ourselves to react to whatever does happen, we're kind of going to be at the mercy of the circumstances. But the other thing that you can do is I mentioned contrast showers. Now, this is something that if you have any complicated medical conditions, you might want to check with your doctor first. But a contrast shower is basically you get into the shower on hot water and then spend about 30 seconds in hot water, then go to cold for as long as you can tolerate, but no more than 30 to 60 seconds. Then go back to hot for 30 seconds, go back to cold for as long as you can tolerate. Make sure you end on cold, and then after you end on cold, just dry yourself off, but don't vigorously dry yourself with a towel so that you warm yourself up. You want to still maintain kind of that colder body temperature so that you're basically what you're doing is you're resetting your hypothalamus. You're resetting your hypothalamus so that you're lowering your body temperature, putting it more into a restful state. Bonus tip number 3, consider magnesium supplementation. There are different forms of magnesium that can give you the runs GI wise, but there's a product that I love called Mag SRT that can be helpful as well. But magnesium and other minerals can help relax the body as well. Next question: is cannabis good for sleep? In the form of CBD, cannabidiol certainly can be. But this is also one of those things that can vary from person to person. So ultimately, what you're going to want to look at is what works for you. But the other thing that I would also encourage you is this, right? We're trained to think about, okay, if I have this situation, use this. If I have this diagnosis, here's the treatment. But listen, we're here, we're talking, plant-based nutrition, all this stuff. We're starting to realize that so much of what we're experiencing is because of our lifestyle factors. So if we start to get out of the mindset of if I have this problem, then take this, we start to go into the mindset of let's create healthy habits and routines and stick to them so that the underlying reason for why we are experiencing symptoms, whether it's insomnia or whatever the case may be, start to go away, right? We want to do the fundamental building blocks so that we get into the rhythm of, sleeping well, having energy in the morning, etc. We're in a modern world that disrupts our normal patterns all the time. I'm in an office right now that is anything from natural, right? So, and it happens to all of us. It's just the way life is. So we have to find ways to get a little bit closer to nature and be a little bit more intentional about it, from our diet to everything else. Next question. I noticed on some melatonin supplement bottles that recommended use is for a few weeks only. Can you explain why this is? So here's a general truth about biological systems, right? If you give the body something that it's supposed to make on its own, there's no reason for the body to make it on its own. Does that make sense? Because think about it. It's all feedback. We talked about cortisol and melatonin, right? And how there's an intricate feedback loop. So if we have no usable melatonin in the system, then yes, you could take it short term just for like an acute problem. But if you're starting to have chronic insomnia and you take melatonin, there's no incentive for your body to produce any melatonin, right? Here's another fact about melatonin. Melatonin is can be used as an antioxidant. So what can happen in the body is that if you don't have good antioxidant status in the form of whole plant foods primarily, right? Your fruits and vegetables, raw if possible, right? Or I mean, right now with COVID and everything, I'm not giving you advice again here. This is just something that I'm doing. Is I'm taking vitamin C and also putting that in my smoothie. Again, just to make sure that my antioxidant status is up. If your antioxidant status is up, then the vitamin C, for instance, gets used, maybe sparing the melatonin so that it's available for its other function. So that's really the point there. Start to think about, and this is again, it's a shift in the way we think about our body. If you give your body something that it's supposed to produce on its own, it's not going to produce it on its own, right? So you want to support the systems that will allow it to function the way it's meant to function. Next question. Is it true that one should not consume nicotine in any capacity before bed? And if so, what should be the cutoff? 2 hours before bed, 3 hours before bed? It's, I'm going to give you another answer here that it's going to depend on you, what you can tolerate. But again, I want you to start to think about how can we return the body to as close to a natural circumstance as possible, natural environment as possible, right? Because our body is intelligent. Our feedback loops are intelligent. We were created intelligently, right? The symptoms that we're having are a result of not having the proper environment that we were designed to thrive on. So ideally, no nicotine, right? But the cutoff, is it right before bed? Is it 2 hours? Is it 3 hours? I would encourage you to really question, why do you need it? Right? If you're trying to quit smoking, for instance, then there's ways to wean off. But ultimately, I want you to start to think about this. Is really this mentality is really important, not just for sleep, but just for improving a healthy lifestyle. That's why we're here, right? It's about developing healthy lifestyle habits. You want to think about that end goal. You want to visualize that life and that health and that purpose that you're living. And what does your life look like? Design your ideal self, right? And then ask your question, that person, that version of you in the future, what are their lifestyle habits? How do they think? How do they eat? What are their vices? What are their not vices anymore? And all that. How do they treat people? What's their psychology? What are their routines and habits? And start implementing those things today. Reverse engineer who you want to be in the future. And that might mean that that question becomes irrelevant after some time because I don't need it anymore, right? There's been differing literature on whether naps are good or bad. What's your take on naps during the day? Uh, there's actually some very interesting realizations here. Some people actually have some genetic um, tendencies to require naps in the middle of the day. I shouldn't say require, but thrive with naps in the middle of the day and don't necessarily sleep for more than 4 to 6 hours at night. And so for those people, taking that nap in the middle of the day can be very, very helpful. Now, if that's not you, right? If you are experiencing HPA axis dysfunction, which is adrenal fatigue, I actually have a video coming out about that on Monday morning. So if you're in the kind of what I call a burnout phase, real adrenal fatigue, it's not actually adrenal fatigue, but I'll explain that in the video. Then if you need the nap, you need the nap, right? But ultimately, it's actually a very small cross section of the population, from my understanding, that truly thrives and requires those naps in the middle of the day. But I would say that ultimately, if you are sleeping for 2 to 3 hours in the middle of the afternoon, that you're really going to want to take a look at your cortisol curve and get that tested. There's a test called a diurnal cortisol test. And what you do is you basically spit into 4 vials once after waking, lunchtime, dinner time, before bed, like 4 times during the day. And it tracks your cortisol throughout the day. And that could really indicate why you might be tired at certain points of the day. And then with the training of a naturopathic physician or an integrative physician, you'll be able to make some adjustments so that you feel better at that time. So your HPA axis is more balanced, so that you're not in need of that nap. Hope that was helpful. Um, what is the right amount of REM sleep at night? I have a Fitbit that gives me info on my sleep, and I wake up a bunch. Yeah, so uh, really, you want to sleep for a duration of about 8 hours. For most people, 8 hours plus or minus one. Um, and you'll find that on a normal sleep pattern, that the longer you go into the night, that REM sleep expands to a longer period. One thing that you can do, if you find that, again, what we're trying to do here is set the mind so that you know, okay, I'm winding down at this time of night and I have patterns and I'm going to wake up at this time. I have gotten to the point right now where I don't set an alarm clock. I wake up when I wake up. Uh, some days I will set an emergency alarm clock in case, hey, I have to be up by 8. So we're going to set an alarm for 8 o'clock. But most days, if you practice that circadian rhythm setting, you can wake up whenever you want to wake up. In my case, I like waking up at 5, go to bed, 9:30, wake up at 5. So the right amount of REM sleep will find you once you are able to set that pattern. Because again, like I mentioned in the presentation, we if we don't create habits and routines, how is our body supposed to create habits and routines? So the right amount of REM sleep, at the end is going to be close to an hour, right? And then a little bit, but you want to sleep in ideally 90-minute intervals. So if you know that you have to get up in 6 hours, well, 6 hours breaks up into 4 90-minute chunks. Um, 5 hours does not, right? You want to sleep more than 5 hours, but if you had to, let's say you have to get up for an early flight, uh, maybe sleep 4.5 hours. 4.5 is going to be better than 5, assuming you can fall asleep, quickly. But try to sleep in 90-minute chunks. But ultimately, again, zoom out, establish the healthy patterns from start to finish, and allow the situation to take care of itself. I know several people who opt for a drink in the evening before bed. Is there any validity to the claim that this will not help you get good sleep, even though you'll possibly sleep faster? So there's a concept called oxidative priority, and oxidative priority talks about when we eat food and have a drink, what does the body break down first? And this ties into nutrition, obviously. So basically, what happens is number one, the first thing the body breaks down is alcohol because it's toxic to the body. There's no place for it to go, there's no storage for them. So the first thing the body does is break up alcohol. You have a thermic effect. Have you ever felt warm after you have a drink? That's why. So you have a thermic effect of alcohol, your body's burning it, and it could take up to 4 hours. The next priority is protein. Again, protein gets broken down into amino acid. Amino acid doesn't really have a good storage form in the body. So again, you have a thermic effect. The rest is basically urinated out. The next priority, after it's taken care of the alcohol and the protein, is carbohydrates. Carbohydrates get utilized for energy, extra gets stored as glycogen, and then the last priority is fat. So if you've had alcohol and protein in your meal and carbohydrates, fat is most likely going to go straight to storage. So that said, the point is that alcohol will get burned fast right away. So in the beginning, it might relax you, but as the night goes on, remember when we go to sleep, our body temperature drops. That thermic effect of the food can disrupt your sleep, and what can end up happening is you wake up earlier than you expect to the following morning, and you feel less energized. Last question here. I have to travel a lot for work. My sleep schedule gets completely out of whack. Have you seen people successfully implement these strategies, light exposure, food timing, while switching time zones? I'm going to be honest with you. It's very difficult. It's very difficult. But this is where it's even more important for you to eat extremely well. It's more important for you to create nighttime habits and rituals so that no matter where you are, whichever time zone, you have a standard habit loop so that you do X, Y, and Z. Your body is trained at that point to get to sleep. You visualize waking up in the morning, feeling energized. You have to do everything to, again, create that normalcy. But if you're constantly traveling, it is very hard. And at some point, and I get it because I had to make this choice for my own career, I had to choose between my health and my career. And ultimately, I chose a different career that allowed me to have both. So I know I don't have a great answer for you there, but I got to tell you the truth there. So here we go. So I think that's all the questions that we have. I just want to say thank you again for your wonderful questions. And if there's anything else that I can do to support you, let me know. You can find me on YouTube. You can search my name, Dr. Karthik Ramanan, or if you want to go straight to the channel, you can go to DRK, Dr. K, NMD, naturopathic medical doctor, drknmd.video. And you'll go straight to my YouTube channel. I got tons of information there for free. Always looking for topics that you want me to cover as well. So you can always let me know. And you can find me on my website if you want, either some direct help, some work for your teams, speaking. If you want me to speak at your company, whatever the case may be, we can work something out. So drkarthikramanan.com, drknmd.video for YouTube. I hope to see you soon. I appreciate you, and I believe in your greatness.